Hello everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV. It is the deep dive. I'm Chris Pajak. That man right there is Josh Williams, the legend, the man, the myth, the legend, Josh Williams. We're here to talk about Arne Slot's first evolution of this Liverpool side. So we're going to go into it. We're going to talk about how, what we were looking at doing in possession at the start of the season, get Josh's thoughts on that, of course. Then we're going to look at the last couple of games and see what's changed. So, Josh, we'll get straight into it, mate. Obviously, in possession, what do you think Slot was trying to achieve, or how was he trying to attack, I should say, in the first stage of the season for you?
I think the emphasis was on basically toning down the whole team. He said that a few times in pre-season. He spoke about the risk versus reward gauge of each player in the team was a little bit off. He specifically said those words. Curtis Jones talked about the midfield being the new heart of the team, which I thought boded well. I thought we saw definite building from the back, a lot more structure, things like that. A lot more of a willingness, a lot more of a desire to entice the opposition, and then once you do, you climb the pitch like a ladder almost really quickly, accelerate the game quickly, and then when you do accelerate the game like that, because you've done it in a planned way, if you lose the ball, you're a lot more, you're basically set, you've got a bit of a rest defence in place type thing. So all of those things I think was crucial. I think the way in which we attacked in the final third, I think he largely kept the same. A lot of stuff he kept the same, I think, but I think the main thing he wanted to tackle was our kind of relentless desire to attack. Sometimes you need a bit of chill in there, and that can help you on the defensive end as well, and I think we've seen that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's right. I think for me, one of the things that I sort of noticed at the start of the season, maybe even first 10 games, was a lot of Trent Alexander-Arnold still ending up in this position. Now, not exclusively and not all game, but a lot of the time we were still seeing that sort of box midfield, weren't we, with Trent moving across there. I think we've seen less of that in recent weeks, and I think that is largely in part down to the fact that Diaz is now playing in the side as well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, I think the Trent thing, I think we went through a period, 18-month period or so, where Trent was just kind of doing it, almost for the sake of doing it, and it added an extra body in the middle of the park, Sam, but we weren't really using it the way it's supposed to be used and things like that. I think now he's a lot more like that. But when he does do that, we use this a lot more. Mm-hmm. So Salah this season, I wrote a piece on this on Monday on my Substack. So Salah last season, the whole of last season, completed 27 dribbles. Right, he's already on 31 this season. It's December. Do you know what I mean? So we've quite clearly ramped up that element of his game where he's dribbling about twice as much. There's a still in that piece, actually, I should have sent you there, where just as Alexander-Arnold comes inside, we use the Salah one-on-one with Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka's supposed to be good at dealing with those. I don't think he was particularly in this game. But we're still using the inverted fullback thing, but it's not just for the sake of, because it's cool. It's so that we can play to Salah, get Salah to drive at the box, and then maybe a shot or a cutback or something. So it's the same. I wouldn't say it's the same. It's like the similar idea, but we're using it a lot more efficiently. Maybe probably the best way of putting it.
Okay, so maybe more a revolution than an evolution there.
Yeah.
Of what's happening. Obviously, we're setting up in this 4-3.
Are you going for a
3 formation? Just being very careful with how I phrase things at the moment.
Once again, Arne Slot is a liar.
You said it, not me. You said it, not
Mate,
me.
I say it every week.
What I find interesting, and this is what I want to come on to, is the fact that we've used Diaz in this number 9 position here, and Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones a lot in this position. Now, before we get into the sort of board heavy sort of side of things, I just want to showcase maybe some average positions from the last 3 weeks. So as you can see on the screen here, the first one is Liverpool versus Tottenham. The middle one is Liverpool versus Leicester. Unfortunately, because we're the home side, we're facing a different way. We're attacking a different way. And the one on the right-hand side of your screen is Liverpool versus West Ham. So the two wingers in this situation, the Tottenham game and the West Ham game, you've got Luis Diaz up front. Look where that number 7 is. I'll just sort of highlight that for you now so you can see. number 7, is right next to Cody Gakpo over on that left-hand side. Now, in the middle one, we've got Darwin Núñez, who doesn't hug to the left anywhere near as much as Luis Diaz does. These are 3 games on the bounce, and Salah, in the 2 games where Diaz is on the field, is the furthest player forward by a country mile.
I was going to say that, yeah.
And then obviously you've got Núñez is very, very close. Probably edges to Salah, to be honest, but very, very close and much higher, much more central as well. And I would suggest maybe that Trent Alexander-Arnold is slightly more inverted with Núñez than he is in the other games as well. So I just wanted to bring that one up there first of all, because I think it leads us quite nicely into our sort of next talking point. And that talking point for me, Josh, is Liverpool, I think, in these games have been creating a box midfield in a different way. So I think what's been happening now is when Liverpool have the ball in, say, a deeper area of the field, Luis Diaz is dropping into that left channel with Cody Gakpo over here, and the attacking midfielder is shifting slightly to the right-hand side, and we're actually creating a box midfield in this area using Luis Diaz, rather than maybe earlier in the season where we saw a lot more of Trent Alexander-Arnold in that.
Well, it's funny because we did similar originally on the Klopp, but because we had a 6 in place on the zone and it was a more of a deep line midfield 3, the shape was more of a diamond.
Yeah.
But you still had the 4. So now doing it like that a little bit more, that explains why potentially Núñez has fallen out of favour a little bit, because Núñez is just a little bit, I think he's the signature player that you want running in behind, away from the ball and stuff like that. So if he's dropping deeper, you're kind of killing his game a little bit. Diaz a lot more comfortable doing that. Jota a lot more comfortable doing that. But that's interesting though, because if you're doing that, there's then less of a need for your right back to invert, which, you know, say for example Trent leaves, for example, it would be harder to replace Trent with a fullback who can do inverted things, because it's relatively rare commodity. So if you can find a way of establishing that 4 in the middle without using your right back, do it. And then your right back will be a little bit more conventional and theoretically easier to replace. So,
okay, so
it would be interesting.
Transfers as well.
Well, it would be interesting if that forms part of it.
Well, it would be. And I think the other thing for me here is this in-possession formation is almost exactly the same as the out-of-possession pressing formation.
Yeah.
Because actually, this becomes your out-of-possession pressing, because this is what we want, isn't it? We want that 4. And then in possession, it's very similar. It's not like when Trent was maybe inverting Josh, is it? And then all of a sudden... Yeah,
you had 6s and 7s.
Yeah, 6s and 7s. He's got to move back. These are all over there. They've got to move over here.
Yeah.
It just feels a little bit more stable. You're almost solidifying your in-transition stuff.
Yeah, well, that goes back to what I mentioned earlier about the rest defence thing. Like, I think Liverpool this season are a lot more set when they lose the ball. As in, when we turn over possession, you know, we're in a position to defend without getting cut open. And that goes back to that, you know, if you're attacking in the shape that you would ideally want to defend in, and that, you know, it makes it a lot easier, as opposed to what you've just mentioned there, where last time when we were losing the ball, players were everywhere, it was just way too fluid and that, and we got done on the defensive end too much, give away a little bit too much, a bit like Man City this season, albeit not quite as bad. And it looks like we've pretty much solved that this time.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to showcase next then, is I'm going to look at the midfield and the attacking rotations, because I think this is something that's possibly quite sort of new for us as well. I'm just going to move my iPad so that Josh can see a little bit better while I'm on here. Now, one of the things that I think we've done better in the last few weeks is the attacking players are starting to switch with each other a little bit more. I think there's probably a little bit of fluidity because, you know, Luis Diaz and Cody Gakpo over there, they can switch positions at will. Cody's played up front for us. Luis Diaz has played on the left wing for us. We're absolutely fine with that. Also, I think there's a little bit more trust in McAllister and Gravenberch taking it in turns to be the deepest player, which I think we've seen more in recent weeks. And you can't actually see him on screen here, but just off screen here, you can see the defender marking him is Curtis Jones. So Curtis Jones is here. You got Ali Mack there. You got Gravenberch there. They're your 3 sort of midfielders. And then if we look at the three strikers as well, sorry, I'm just having a little bit of a problem here. You've got Cody Gakpo, who's central, Diaz, who's left-hand side, and Mo Salah on the right-hand side. So they're all switching positions now. And obviously the ball's picked up by Alexis McAllister. And again, I talked about it earlier on, didn't I? Diaz is going to drop deep into that left-hand side channel. And as he comes inside, McAllister plays the ball into him, no problem whatsoever. We move it on. He plays the ball quickly to Gravenberch. And there you can see Curtis Jones is on that left-hand side, so the rotation's there as well. And then it's back to McAllister, and the play actually breaks down from there. But I did think that it showcased that we're not only switching the front three around, we're actually at times switching the midfield around. And I think that is maybe, I don't know whether you'd agree with this, is that Slot having more trust in the players because he's seen them more to be able to just sort of expand their game a touch?
Yeah, maybe. I think things like that generally come with time with the manager. You know, over time you get to add these layers, these like extra rotations where like someone's swapping positions with who or whatever. But initially it's about getting the basics in place, and then over time, over the course of a few seasons, like say for example, Arsenal right now, Arsenal can invert from both sides. You know, they've got lots of different build-up shapes and things like that. Sometimes Odegaard drops deeper in things. But that's through time working with Arteta and recruitment as well. I think recruitment deserves a shout there, actually, because Liverpool have got lots of players in those areas that are versatile enough to swap with each other and interchangeable, you know, skills, multifaceted and things. And again, I don't want it to be a Núñez show, but if we're looking at Núñez, he's probably, out of them all, he's probably the one guy who kind of needs, you stay there and you do this, you know what I mean? I mean, Salah's a bit like that, to be fair, but Salah's only like that because he's so good at what he does. Whereas Núñez is probably the least flexible when it comes to just general tactics, to be honest.
But even Núñez, we've seen dropping in and playing.
Yeah, we've seen him.
We're doing it more this season than ever before.
Yeah, we've seen him do it, but I still think he gets a bit of a nosebleed when he does.
Agreed, but does the point that he's still doing it mean that Slot is trying to get his centre forward to do that?
Yeah. I think the point that he's still doing it suggests that Slot wants that from his 9, and that's why I think there's a potential bit of conflict there with Núñez, because I don't think Núñez is a natural when it comes to all that stuff. So, you know, that explains why Jota gets a game ahead of him, why Diaz gets in there ahead of him at times, in big games especially.
Okay, so worth noting, obviously, against West Ham, it's Curtis Jones who plays in the 10. Against Spurs, it is Szoboszlai who plays in the 10. I've never pronounced it like that before. It's Dom who plays in the 10.
Sue Barsley. Remember that one?
Yeah. Right, so we're going to just highlight Diaz's positioning here. So you can see him in the middle of the screen. Again, he's not central. He's off to the left. You've got the 10. Szoboszlai, you got Mo Salah, you got Cody Gakpo cutting inside, you got Gravenberch and you got McAllister there. So we're moving on. Gakpo cuts inside, plays the ball back to Andy Robertson. Now Diaz is making a run there. Now what's interesting for me is the pass could be played, but it's difficult because of the 3 players. So for me, that suggests Diaz is making a run for 2 reasons. One, on the off chance that Robertson decides to play the pass, but also to free up this area of the field and drag a centre-half out of the way. I'll get rid of my scrolling now. As we play it on, you can see McAllister making that run. The midfielder wants nothing to do with it because he thinks he's got a centre-half probably around here. You'll be dealing with it. But as such, Diaz is the one who draws the defender out. And as we move the ball on, Diaz draws the defender out. Szoboszlai's one-on-one. Mo Salah's one-on-one. The ball's decent. Szoboszlai tries to get on the end of it. And McAllister has just ran past his man here. And he's going to pick that ball up and knock it in to the back of the net with a header. So, front 3, Gakpo, Diaz, Salah. Furthest 2 player forwards and the goal scorer, Alexis McAllister, joined by Dom Szoboszlai, again creating space for midfield runners, which is again something we've seen over the last few weeks.
Well, did you see what Slot said recently? Did you see what you mentioned about deep runs?
Probably, but
really interesting quote. So he said, it's quite a dramatic thing for him to say, to be fair. He said deep runs are probably the most important thing in football. That's quite a statement, that. And then he goes on to say, you don't always have to play the player who makes the deep run, but maybe then you create a bigger one-on-one situation for your winger. The more deep runs you make, the more chance you have to win the game. Again, that's quite a statement. You know, that's the quite a sweeping statement to make regarding one element of play, but in that game, especially against Spurs, but generally speaking, we do have midfielders that can arrive late. McAllister's got that knack. I remember comparing him to Gundogan a few years back. Szoboszlai, we know, has that. He can run all day, and I think he scored once or twice in the Spurs game.
He scored, yeah.
And even Gravenberch, who's the deepest line of all of them. He's got that athletic element to his game where he can arrive late in that. And I think at the start of his Liverpool career, he posted a few assists and things like that. So it's nice to have midfielders that can do that. And if you get a specialist in, like a Zubimendi, let's say, you maybe lose a little bit of that because then he's a specialist and he's staying where he is and he knows what he's doing and all that. So having these multifaceted players, Slot's loving this squad.
Absolutely. I'm going to move on again and I'm going to showcase more of Diaz's positioning. Now, first of all, I think it's interesting that Spurs are pressing with this high four, which I'm all for, by the way. But that is a big old gap behind a four-man press when Liverpool have outnumbered you with 5 at the back there anyway.
Yeah, they're unhinged at times, Spurs. The way Liverpool have that moment where they think, this isn't it, retreat. Spurs just constantly go.
It's crazy, isn't it? So Van Dijk plays the ball out to McAllister. Again, the deepest of the midfielders, I would just like to point out.
It's funny.
Diaz.
It's a joke, isn't it?
How much space does this man have here? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Postecoglou's committing crimes, yeah.
It's unbelievable. So McAllister turns around, plays the ball to Diaz. Now, what's interesting is this defender here is on Cody Gakpo, but you can see his body position. He's already realised that this man's had to push up, and there's a big old gap behind. So he's panicked about the big old gap. So as you move it on, he's played the ball to Gakpo, Diaz instead, and the defender's retreated inside. Fair play. It's actually not bad defending from him, I don't think. But Gakpo's got the ball at his feet. Again, furthest player forward, Dom Szoboszlai, deep runs. And as we go forward, you can see Szoboszlai flicks that ball on, flicks the ball on, and then plays a simple pass for Mo Salah to get the goal. And it's in the back of the net. And again, just reinforcing that Liverpool are creating space by Diaz dropping deep. And McAllister actually being the deepest of the 3 players, at times picking the ball up off Virgil van Dijk. And finally, I just want to showcase Jones's positioning. Again, different 10, same outcome. Jones here, Luis Diaz over here. Ball's played around the middle of the park. You see Gravenberch's got it over here, turns it inside to McAllister. Diaz has dropped. You got your 3 players. Gakpo's just off screen there. And as the ball's played in to Diaz's feet, he's got McAllister next to him. You've got Gravenberch over on the right-hand side. Trent popped up in the middle of the park, and he drives forwards, plays the ball, trying to hit the furthest player forward. Again, the number 10. Plays a lovely 1-2 with the West Ham defender, and the ball's in the back of the net. And again, just wanted to I think that drives home that Liverpool are playing this in slightly a different way. Now, the knock-on effect of this, of course, is we've been getting some really good goals from the defensive midfielders. I think it's 2 goals and 3 assists now for Curtis Jones, or is it 2 assists and 3 goals in the season on the Premier League? It's one of them. I can't remember which way round it is. After Slot saying earlier on in the season, Josh, you need more goals, you need more assists from that number 10 position. Jones is starting to provide that. Szoboszlai is starting to provide that. The knock-on impact, and certainly we saw this in the game against Tottenham Hotspur, is when Liverpool are committing players forwards, and we'll just drive these in, we are getting Trent Alexander-Arnold into this position a lot more. Probably too much against Tottenham in the first half, to be honest. But that is the most dangerous place for Trent on the field, as I see it. Yeah.
It feels like he's neglected that spot for a few years, though. And to be honest, even going back to the Salah point earlier, with Salah being the highest player of all of our 11, even just things like that, I feel like we just moved away from towards the end of Klopp's time, almost because, well, we've been doing this for ages now, haven't we? Should we just do something else type thing, where Núñez becomes the tip of the spear, Salah drops a little bit deeper to create for him, and then you've got Trent tucking inside and doing the cool inverted midfield stuff, when in reality, I mean, he was good at that anyway, but on top of that, he's obviously arguably the best crosser of the ball, arguably in the world, from that right half space kind of area, the inside right. We saw a goal on the back of that recently. Who was that against? He puts a cross in.
Trent, Tottenham?
Diaz header.
Yeah,
that was Spurs,
goal,
yeah.
First goal.
Yeah.
That exact area of the field.
That exact area, yeah. But he's if you want to put players in positions where they can showcase what they're good at, give him what Trent is good at. If you get him in that area a number of times over the course of a 90-minute game, he's gonna be really dangerous. As long as you've got players arriving late back stick, which we have definitely focused on this season with Gakpo and Diaz always arriving there, and sometimes Robertson as well. So it just feels like so many little fine tweaks that Slot has made, and a lot of them have just been like going back to what originally made sense 3-4 years ago, remembering that and just putting it back in place again. Going back to go forward in many ways.
Absolutely. And then I think the final thing for me on this one is probably what it does for this man here, Mo Salah, because it's great that we're getting these lads into those positions, but what I think's happening when you see Diaz shifting over to that left-hand side, it does create space in the middle of the park for the most dangerous player on the pitch, Mo Salah. And that is beautiful. Obviously, you can have times when Jones is the furthest player forward and Szoboszlai is the furthest player forwards, but ultimately we're going back to vacating space for Salah and Gakpo to then drive into.
Yeah, well, that's the crucial thing. If you're playing with wide forwards, you can get goals. You want to open up space for them, and the way in which you open up space for them is just by doing that Roberto Firmino type movement, where you just drop into midfield, take a centre half with you maybe, or maybe because you've dropped the defensive line, the opposition defensive line moves up a little bit higher, then Salah runs deep, Gakpo runs deep, whoever it is, and they get found. So again, just going back to that kind of OG Liverpool way of attacking, and I keep mentioning Nunes, don't I? I don't really want to, but I think
considering you were so high on him for so long, it seems like once you fall out of the good graces of Josh Williams, you are out of the good graces.
No, listen, mate, I like to think I say it how I see it, and last season and the season before, I saw the danger that Nunes was creating. I think now the danger's kind of gone. We established this a few weeks ago, and you're relying more on his all-round game, and his all-round game for me has never really been there. So I think, but going back to what I was going to say though, I think getting in Nunes and Klopp being the guy to get him in. Mm-hmm. If Klopp gets him in, it's kind of on you to get the most out of him.
Yeah.
So I think he almost took priority, and you moved the attack around a little bit, and then your best player in Salah becomes a bit more of a secondary priority almost behind Nunes.
Looks a guy that's getting older, you might think the end's coming, etc, etc.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, the getting older thing, you could argue it made sense. If Nunes had delivered how we expected him to deliver, maybe it makes sense, and maybe Salah just walks out the door this summer or something, but Slot has reversed it sensibly, in my opinion. Like, I think he's probably got it right. Well, he has got it right, I mean, Salah's exploding. And it's Everton's working perfectly.
And then it would be remiss of me to not talk about it, because you mentioned Zubimendi earlier. We had a big thing where we were both in agreement that we still think Slot would probably look for that sort of conductor in the middle of the park. I've wavered on that over the last couple of weeks, mainly because of the rotation of the midfield more than anything else. I still see the need for an extra midfielder. I'm not sure I see the need for a player who gets in the first team every single week anymore. No, that makes sense.
I agree with that, yeah. I think that there on the midfield, that's roughly how the midfield sets up, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Roughly like that. So you've got Gravenberch as the deepest. You've got McAllister in a bit of a half in between kind of spot. And you've got the guy who's in touch with the final third, in touch with the striker, part of the high press, and that sort of thing. I think if you look at those three spots, I do think we need another player for this spot, because we only really have Gravenberch, and the alternative to Gravenberch is Endo. Slot doesn't really fancy him. He's also getting on now, and on top of that, I don't think there's a marriage there with the playing style. Mm-hmm. I think Endo suited Klopp's game a lot more, where the midfield gets bypassed. Now you're playing through the midfield, Endo's just not as technical as Gravenberch is, so it looks a bit weird. So I think you're well stocked here. But moving forward, I think Gravenberch can't keep playing every single game. So you're not necessarily signing a starter, but you need to sign someone who you're willing to start, won't be terrified of doing it, who has a
different skill set.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to be a Zubimendi in the sense of like he plays there and nowhere else. But if you sign a midfielder who can do the deepest spot and maybe also that one, for example, I think that's the kind of signing you'd make. You'd sign not necessarily a signature 6 or whatever, because Gravenberch has proved that he deserves to be starting in most games for this team. But if you just sign another midfielder who can play these, then you can give Gravenberch rests and he can get minutes all the different ways and all that stuff. Because that's one of the issues. If you do sign Zubimendi, he can only really play there. And that means you're moving Gravenberch, which is, I was going to say it's fine.
I think Gravenberch can do the other roles.
So do I, but McAllister's essential to this team. Yeah. So he's not going to, you don't want to be choosing between them two. So I think just sign a midfielder who can do who can do both of them to a decent level, and everyone will still get good minutes then if you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's the option as well of Bajcetic and what happens with him, and maybe he comes in and solidifies those sort of two positions without you having to spend any money. While you've also get to see him firsthand, maybe decide in the summer whether Bajcetic has come back from that injury well enough. It's really fascinating. But ultimately we are watching, I think, the first evolution of Slot Liverpool over the last few weeks. I truly believe that we are the best side in world football right now. And I still think there's room for improvement, Josh. We've called him second half Slot at times. He's been called that. He's now played everybody once, bar Everton. If you think he was good in the second half, how good can he be when he's actually seen you play?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, let's hope he's second half of the season Slot.
Let's hope so.
Unbelievable so far. What a start to life in Liverpool. And he's made all the tweaks that you needed to make. He hasn't put a foot wrong, really, when you think about it. Hasn't said one wrong word or anything. His messages that he's been ramming home have been spot on. There was a first
press conference, I'd say, maybe people would... Oh, I'm kidding.
Again, I'm going to bring him up again. The one player he arguably hasn't improved is Nunes. He's got a different version of him. I'd argue he's improved his defensive game, to be fair. But he's made him less dangerous. But the team's benefited. So I haven't got a problem with that. But other than that, Klopp is a master at making a rough diamond into a diamond, harvesting potential into quality. But if you think of Gakpo, if you think of Gravenberch, what Slot has done, Slot's done that. Slot's done what Klopp would usually be known for doing.
Couldn't do, maybe.
And even Salah.
Or didn't do.
Even Salah. This is what we're seeing from Salah. I was going to say we never saw under Klopp. I suppose we did, but what he's doing now is comfortably his best. I said the other day on a podcast, I can't remember what the podcast was, that I think this is arguably the best version of Salah that I've seen, including his first season. I think this version of him so complete, rounded, just as nowhere near as reliant on his pace. Amazing. Okay. So the job Slot's done for everyone has been incredible. Like.
It absolutely has. Sorry, Joe's just let me know that there's a super chat in here, and I'm so sorry that I've not got the YouTube app open on my iPad and can't get to it. And just as I'm wrapping up as well, I'll see if I can just quickly get it. We will be over to Redmen Plus very, very shortly, where we're going to be doing a show on marginal gains. So that'll be really interesting. I'm going to take a specific look at the corners. It's Hawks who sent us the super chat. John Bajcetic being Gravenberch's understudy for the immediate future. Thank you so much for the super chat. We kind of just discussed that a little bit, didn't we?
Repeat that, sorry.
Odds on Bajcetic being the Gravenberch's understudy for the immediate future. I do think we've just kind of just seen that.
I did mention the other week though that was with you, Werner, where I kind of put a bit of doubt in there as well. Like I know
repeat it.
Well, I know we all love Bajcetic. I do as well, but I don't know. I just think that the man's are really seriously high for this Liverpool team. You are dealing with the best in the world and that, and Bajcetic is very good, but I've seen some of his games at Salzburg, and to be fair, he's been out for a long time, so there's still a bit of rust in there and stuff like that. But you just have to be so technically secure to play in this team. And I think if you think of Bajcetic's qualities, I don't think he's particularly. I don't think you want him anywhere near the final third. Bajcetic. I don't think he's gonna nick a goal like Szoboszlai might or McAllister might. I think Bajcetic for me is a middle third, arguably defensive third player.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not gonna go there. I think all I'd say is I'm maybe, generally speaking, not as high on him as the Liverpool fan base, as like a cert that he's gonna succeed maybe. But saying that, I still think he's got a much higher chance of succeeding than a lot of the other kids that are, around the team type thing. But it's going to be interesting, and maybe I need to watch a little bit more of them in Salzburg. But the demand is high. That's all I'll say. That the level is high.
Absolutely, okay. We had another chat from Daniel Green saying minute of applause on the 17th minute against United. I was just looking on my phone because it was I think it was an 11-year-old that's died. I'm not 100% sure, and I was trying to get up the lad's name. And I can't remember it. I just saw it on Twitter maybe an hour or so ago. So if you are at the United game, we'll probably dig that tweet out and retweet it from the Redmen account anyway. It'd be good to have that minute's applause on the 17th minute. It'd be great to cap that 17th minute with a goal as well from Mo, which would be fantastic. But as I mentioned, we are going to be going on to Redmen Plus. We'll be looking at the corners and marginal gains and actually taking a proper look at it, not just looking at who did it first, because wow. Also, who gives a shit, right? Who did it first? Like, you know what I mean? Oh my God, Liverpool put 11 players on the pitch. We started 11 last week. Oh, the copycat. Get a fucking life. But also we're going to be looking at the actual stats and maybe the reasons behind that change against Leicester. So get over to redmenplus.com or get the Redmen Plus video subscription tier on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining us for the last deep dive of 2024. More to come, better to come, and hopefully league titles and cups to come as well in 2025. See you all soon. Ta-ra.